You're with Wayne and Jess for breakfast. We are joined now by our Radio 97 resident lawyer, Despina Priala, with Talking Law. And we thought we'd go into the first home buyers grant because a lot of people are going for the house and land packages or hoping to buy land. And you've had to contend with a lot of this of late.
I have. I'm looking after a lot of first home buyers, and I really love looking after them because they do need that special attention, and it's only because they haven't gone through this process before. So we do hold their hand a little bit, and we don't mind that because it's really important to educate them about what they're actually doing as a first step to buying their first home, which could be land first or a home to be built later or together.
Well, how do you go about making that decision?
Well, I mean, the decision to go ahead and buy a piece of land and to get your first home built is obviously a personal decision. So we don't get involved with the client about, well, which estate or which piece of land you should look at. They come to us and say, look, I'm interested in buying a block of land in this estate, and I'd like you to look at the contract for us and potentially the build contract as well, because we have a builder in mind, and there's many builders, particularly on the Gold Coast, that are experienced in building for first home buyers and house and land packages.
I didn't realise though, with drawing up contracts, maybe developers aren't always disclosing a lot of information. There's so many things to factor in.
There is. So this is what I wanted to talk about this morning. So when anybody, first home buyer or not, if you're an experienced buyer, when you buy a block of land particularly, that piece of land could have a number of things that affect that land for the build that people wouldn't be aware of. But as lawyers, we see it every day and we're quite experienced with it, or I am, so I know what to look for. So there are a number of things, and some of these terms, they may be a bit foreign when I mention them to people, but we're talking about things like easements. So easements are an encumbrance, and we're talking about things that affect the land, such as services. There could be drainage, there could be sewerage easements, there could be a right of way for an adjacent lot, which is important. So you need to know if the lot is going to be affected by easements or potential easements down the track.
And something that, you would know about and you would hear about a lot are retaining walls. Absolute nightmare, or they can be.
They can be. So, I mean, I'm not a builder and you're not a builder, so even myself, I'm not that experienced with, you go to a block of land, I don't know what I'm looking for potentially. So the developer, in my view, has an obligation to disclose to potential buyers this lot, which is estimated to be built when we finish the development. It's going to be 400 square metres or 300 square metres. Here's the proposed plan. And it's going to be affected by a number of things. For example, a retaining wall. Okay, so, and what's a retaining wall?
Yeah.
So retaining wall, and a builder will be able to tell you a bit more about that, an engineer, but sometimes they have to have retaining walls. Council's required that when they build the estate, when they develop the estate and they subdivide and create individual lots. So the retaining wall sometimes can actually eat into the lot because it might be, 1.5 metres at the back or a metre on the side or thereabouts. So that means if it eats into the lot, it's going to affect your building envelope, how big your home can be on that lot.
So that literally could mean the difference between, say, a 4-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house.
Absolutely, and I've had a client experience that exactly, who came to me after they've signed the contract and after they settled the land, to then realise, oh, this lot has a retaining wall, it's actually going into the lot 1.5 metres, and the builders told them afterwards, after they settled on the land, instead of your 4-bedroom dream home, and they have 3 children, it's actually going to be a 3-bedroom home, and they were devastated, absolutely devastated. So,
and they've already got this design in mind, got
yes,
an architect to draw it all up for them?
Yes. So if you are looking for a block of land, you really should be talking to a builder before you settle the land and even before you go under contract. And typically, the house and land packages, you will get your land contract and potentially a build contract by a particular builder that you have in mind, or maybe the developer has got 3 or 4 builders who are building in the estate anyway, and you can make your choice. But talking to the builder early is very important from that perspective.
What if the developer doesn't make a disclosure about, say, for example, the retaining wall or anything else that has to do with your particular block of land.
Sloping land,
Yeah,
the
all
rock
sorts of things,
formations
yeah,
out the back that you sometimes see.
Where do you stand?
Yeah, so it's a tricky area. My view is the developer has to disclose all and sundry, everything that affects the lot. Yes, it can be a buy beware situation in Queensland. New South Wales is different because New South Wales you have full disclosure by sellers, which is quite different in Queensland. And I think it's better in New South Wales actually than Queensland from that perspective. But my view is that the developer has an obligation to disclose everything to buyers, such as retaining walls, such as easements, such as covenants, such as building covenants and a building envelope. Most developers do. They do. But sometimes you might find that one developer may not, and that's why you should never sign these contracts, you see, until you talk to a lawyer who's experienced with off the plan and developments like this, particularly with land and acreage land. And if you are looking at acreage land, they're usually in the hinterland or inland, and you're going to have reserves next to it. You're going to have potential bushfire zones that have already been identified by council. So when we talked about easements before. So then we were talking about building envelopes. So in a building envelope is an area that you might have, say, 4,000 square metre lot. You think, great, I'm going to build all over that lot. Well, you can't.
You can't use the whole thing.
No, of course not. So there's a building envelope that's usually much smaller than that, and that's typically because you're in an area where there's a bushfire zone or it's prone to bushfire hazards. So council has said, well, this is the building envelope on this particular lot, so you can only build within that building envelope. Now, also sometimes developers have building covenants as part of the estate. So what does that mean? So that means that you can build your home, but it has to be within the covenants that the developer has set. And why do they set that? Because they want to see uniformity and consistency in the estate that they have developed themselves. So you can't stick a purple house, in the middle of all sort of, mainstream colours. Yes, so that's really important. The type of fences, the type of lawns and gardens that can be put in place, types of roofs. Roofs are a big deal with estates, the type of roof that you can actually put on your house. So all of that's really important. And covenants. Covenants, I have to mention, is another thing. So estates, sometimes lots are affected by covenants, and that means that there are covenants that actually are registered on title for that lot, and it affects the type of native trees that you may or may not be able to have on the lot. So that's really important as well. A lot of people don't know or aren't aware that that's potentially something that can affect a lot.
I think it's best coming to you to seek the advice, quite personally, because otherwise it foils all your plans.
Exactly. So you should never sign. The lesson here really is, yes, you should never sign a contract before getting advice, but particularly where you're a first-time buyer, you haven't gone down this track before, and you're looking at house and land. So you've got a double whammy. You've got a land contract that has all these things that you don't know about that you've got to get advice on, and you've got a build contract. So you've got a double whammy there, and you really should be getting advice 100% before you go down that path, and understanding, as you said at the very beginning, the grants. Am I eligible to get grants, particularly in Queensland at the moment? So you need to understand that and find out if you are, because that is factored into your budget as a first home buyer particularly.
And you probably go in so gung-ho and enthusiastic, my first property,
Yes.
but then it can all fall apart.
It can all fall apart if you don't know about various costs, if you don't know about the build, yes, it could all fall apart. So, but it could not. You just got to get the right advice.
And that's the important thing, isn't it?
So living in Queensland, what happens with the grant?
So in Queensland, you've got, as a first home buyer, you've got potentially the first home owners grant and the home builder grant. First home owners grant's $15,000 and the home builder grant is $25,000. The home builder grant is ending at the end of the year in Queensland. So that is why there's been a flurry of activity from developers and builders about marketing and selling to first home buyers. But there are a number of conditions that you have to meet and qualify to see if you're eligible, both for the first home owners grant and the home builder grant. So it's not a given that, oh, this is my first home, I'm eligible. Well, no, you need to go get the advice, not necessarily, and you need to find out, because people are thinking, I've got 40 grand. I've got 40 grand, that's great. Well, not necessarily, you might. You just need to get that advice so you've got your budget correctly identified for your first home.
Well, it is such a major purchase, so yeah, you really need to line up your ducks, as it were, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jump on it sooner rather than later if it finalises this year.
It does finalise. You've got to sign a contract by the 31st of December to qualify in that aspect of the home builder grant. There are other conditions you have to qualify for as well. But yes, you could sign, in theory, a contract on the 31st of December, New Year's Eve, knock yourself out. So as long as it's in place then, but you need to get advice well before then if you're eligible.
So we can come and see you up at Runaway Bay at Priala Legal.
Yes, well, we do a multitude of different types of legal work, but part of it is to also look after first-home buyers, so absolutely.
And website, prialalegal.com.au. You also have YouTube vids up now, so we can just search for your name, Despina Priala.
Yes, that's right.
So,
do you want to wrap it up with the email address?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
do that. No, that's right, we'll do that. And if you have any questions at all about the law, then Despina is happy to answer those for you, and we'll present the question to her on your behalf. Just pop it into an email and send it to us, breakfast@radio97.com.au, and Despina will hear from you again next week.
Look forward to it.